Okay, we're gonna ditch the warm-up today since we've got a lot going on. We're just gonna skip it, so don't worry about the warm-up. We are gonna talk proportions today. And a proportion is, we've talked ratios, right? Ratios and rates. We talked about those on Tuesday. A proportion is basically taking two ratios and setting them equal to each other, okay? So an equation states two ratios are equal. So like you see here, A over B equals C over D. Do you know why B and D cannot be zero?
Because they're there.
You cannot divide something by zero. If you type 7 divided by 0 into your calculator is going to say something like error divide by 0 or syntax error, right? Divide by 0 error. There you go. There's no answer yet. This is just saying you can set up a proportion like this as long as B and D are not zeros. So, which they won't be. But just so you know, you cannot divide by 0. We call the first and the last the extremes of proportion. We call the middle two, B and C, the means of proportion. Mean, if you think of the word mean, anyone know mean in math? Mean, median, and mode. What's a mean? It's the average, right? So it's like your average, if you will. I'm not picky about knowing those names, but if you see extreme or mean, that's what they're talking about, okay? Okay, so solving proportions. Here's the deal. There are two methods I'm going to show you. If I had to guess, most of you are going to use the second method, but they both work and they're both great. So if you like the first one better, do it every time. Well, you can't do it every time, but do it whenever possible, okay? But I feel like most of the world uses method 2. That's just the way it tends to go. You may use whichever one clicks more for you. Okay, so here it is. Method number 1 uses the multiplication property. Do you remember what the multiplication property does? We learned it in 2. It multiplies. Mind blowing. I know, Joaquin. You are multiplying both sides of your equation by the same thing, whatever that thing is. Okay, so if you look here, if I'm trying to isolate the m, if I'm trying to get m by itself, I would have to multiply by 12. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I get m equals, you can think of it like this if you want, 12 over 1. What do you do when you multiply fractions? Straight across, or you can reduce, right? You can cross reduce. Totally up to you. I would just plug it into your calculator. I would plug in 12 times 7 divided by 8. You get 10.5. So that is your value for m. Okay, so you can use the multiplication property. Now here's the trick. If it was flipped over, 8 over 7 equals m over 12. 12 over m, sorry. Okay. Then this is different because now you can't multiply both sides by 12 because you get 144 on the right side. So when your variable's in the denominator, the multiplication property doesn't work quite as nicely because now this is in the denominator and that's problematic, okay? Which is why I think most people just go toward method 2 because method 2 works the same way every single time, no matter the setup. Questions on the multiplication property? Okay, then this is probably the one that you have heard of a lot. Solving proportions using cross multiplying. Does that sound familiar? So notice these are fractions, ratios that are set equal to each other. The rule that goes with that is if it's A over B equals C over D, then I can go A times D and set that equal to B times C. Okay, so I can cross multiply and set them equal. But did you hear what I said? Set them equal. A lot of times when people cross multiply, they try to turn it into another ratio. It's not another ratio, it's an equation. This equals that. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. You're going to go 4 times x, and then make sure you put an equal sign in, and then you go the other way, 3 times 8. So 4x equals 24, okay? Now it's just general algebra. What do? Divide by 4. So you solve that equation and x equals 6. Okay? You like that better? Most people do. What do you do for b? What's your setup? 5y. That's this one. What comes next? What comes between that? Equals. 5y equals 9. Okay, now how do you solve this? You divide by 5 and then just leave it alone. Y equals 9/5. If you don't love improper fractions, you are welcome to turn it into 1 and what? 4/5. That's fine. If it works out nicely, where you have a decimal like a terminating decimal or a repeating decimal, then yes, you may give me the decimal. But if it does not work out nicely, then don't give me a decimal. If it's a number that just keeps going, then ditch it, okay? Okay, then we get a little bit fancier. When you have proportions that have expressions in them, so in other words, not just one number on top or bottom, but an expression, something plus something or something minus something, then you need parentheses, okay? So if there's an expression, I want you to think, put in parentheses, okay? It's the same process, but with parentheses. So if I cross this way, I'm saying 4 times the difference, b minus 8. Okay, then you put in an equal sign. What's the other side going to be? B plus 3. Okay, and now you can do the algebra. So now you take this, you distribute. So that's 4b minus what? 32. Don't forget to distribute both pieces. Distribute over here, 5b plus 15. Okay. Stop and take a breath for a minute here. This is where some of the struggles in the basic algebra have been coming in. Your equal sign is here. Are we combining like terms, or are we doing the opposite to move something to the other side? You are doing the opposite. Don't go 4b plus 5b right now. They're on different sides of the equal sign. You cannot do that. We want to move it off of one side, so make it 0 by subtracting it. But whatever you do to one side, you got to do to the other. Excuse me. So 5b minus 4b is 1b. You don't even technically need a 1 there. You may call it b. Kind of looks like a 16, huh? 1b. So b plus 15 equals, what's on your left side right now? Negative 32. Don't ditch the negative. So then we subtract the 15. What does that equal?
47.
No, negative 47. Okay, so b equals negative 47. How can you check your answer? Go back up here, plug in 47 minus 8, and type that into your calculator, what that works out to, 39 divided by 5. Type in 47 here, 50 divided by 4. They should equal the same thing, okay? Okay, so you do this one. Letter B, work it out. N over 5 equals 2n plus 4 over 6. Work that out and see what you get. Yes. I told you I posted the answer keys in your module, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't remember what class I've told what to these days. So much to think about. Who's got an answer? Okay, I'll give you another 30 seconds. All right, Brody, what'd you get?
-5.
-5.
Equals -5.
Joaquin, what'd you get?
-5.
Anybody else have an answer now? -5.
-5.
-5. So cross multiply it. 6n equals 5. Don't forget your parentheses. 2n plus 4. So this is 10n plus 20. Just out of curiosity, how many of you right here subtract a 6n from both sides? How many of you subtract a 10n from both sides? Okay. If you subtract the 6n, what's on your left side? 0, right? You need the number 0 there still, because then you're going to move things over. So just be careful with that. So it looks like more people do this, so we'll do this. So this would be a -4n equals 20, and then divide by -4. So n equals -5. And put a box around it. Circle your answers, box your answers. That would be lovely. Okay, last two are word problems, but using this same concept of proportions, okay? So it says a flash drive has 2 gigabytes of storage and can hold 500 songs. A similar larger flash drive has 80 gigabytes of storage. About how many songs can the larger flash drive hold? Here's the deal. Ultimately, it does not matter what goes where as long as you are consistent with where you're putting things, because there is a property of proportions that says if you take the reciprocal of both and set them equal, they're still going to get you the same answer. So it really doesn't matter if you put gigabytes on top or songs on top, but it does matter that you keep consistent wherever you're going to put them. Okay, so do you want gigabytes on top or songs on top? Gigabytes. So if we do 2 gigabytes per 500 songs, that should equal, so where are you putting that 80? On the top. Gigabytes across from gigabytes, right? So 80 over X number of songs. When you set these up, you do not need to label them for me. The reason I label them here is so that you don't mix up what is where. The label isn't doing anything for you in solving the problem other than keeping straight what you're solving for. So I don't mark you off if you don't label it. I just blew a bubble. So cross multiply this, you get 2x equals, what is that, 40,000? And then divide by 2. So x equals 20,000 what? Songs. Make sure on a word problem that you label it 20,000 songs. Okay? You try letter B then. An 8-ounce can of orange juice contains about 97 milligrams of vitamin C. About how many milligrams of vitamin C are there in a 12-ounce can of orange juice? Set it up and solve it. Oh my goodness. 19, 21, 23, 24, 25, 26, 31, 52. I checked my grades at 7:30 this morning, and there was not an assignment to grade. I was up to date. Just checked right now. What number did I just say? 52 assignments to grade. From 7:30 this morning, in 3 hours, 52 assignments to grade. So much. All right, who has an answer? Olivia, what'd you get?
I got 145.5 and you said 5.
Right, milligrams, 145.5. Anybody else get that? So I set it up. You don't have to. I did ounces over milligrams for the problem. So 8 ounces per 97 milligrams equals 12 ounces per some number of milligrams. So you cross multiply that and you get 8x equals 97 times 12 is 1,164, and then divide by 8. So X comes out to 145.5, and then make sure that you label your answer, okay? Questions on that? Okay, that's the first one. 15 minutes, that's a short